Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Scorpio for June 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out what's new on my blog, and also if you're interested in learning astrology for your personal or professional use, then check out my Astrology Apprenticeship program that will start enrolling on June 1st. So what's going on this month? We have eclipse season ready to rumble. We have 3 eclipses this summer or winter for y'all down under. 2 eclipses in July, 1 in August. Because we have 3, I'm going to take 3 months of my reports to really focus in on each one. Okay, so the first eclipse is on July 12th. It's a partial solar eclipse at almost 21 degrees of Cancer. You may see manifestations of that eclipse as well as the lunar eclipse that's later in the month in June. We often see this increase in notable news, radical trajectory changes, dramatic endings or accomplishments, things coming to fruition, bright new beginnings, opportunities, doors flying open. The eclipse time is all of that. That is what we tend to see. So in the times in between eclipse time, we have eclipse time twice a year. We sort of get used to the changes that came from the eclipse season, and now we're getting back in the eclipse season. So more changes are ahead. So I will talk about this partial solar eclipse this month, the total lunar eclipse at 4 degrees of Aquarius on July 27th. I'll focus on where you're going to see that for Scorpio in July report. And then in my August report, I'll cover the partial solar eclipse at 18 degrees of Leo and where Scorpios will see that in their chart. But for now, we're going to talk about where you'll see this solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer show up in the chart for Scorpio. Okay, so a couple of quick notes here before we get started with that is that we are going to have Mars going into retrograde on June 26th. We've been talking about this. I've been talking about this forever. It's a really long transit. The shadow period for Mars retrograde started May 11th. So by the time we start June, we're like getting deeper into this retrograde energy. And then after it goes direct on August 28th, so June 26th through August 26th is the actual retrograde. The pre-shadow period or pre-transit shadow period started May 11th, runs through June 26th. The post-shadow transit runs from August 26th through October 11th, I think. Okay, so it's long and we need to understand it, and you need to especially understand it because as a Scorpio, you are co-ruled by Mars. Mars rules Aries and it co-rules Scorpio. It affects everybody, but it affects people with Aries and Scorpio placements very deeply. I have Aries rising and I'm really affected by this transit. But I have to say that how I'm affected by this transit, I love now that I understand what this transit does, okay? So Scorpio people and Aries people are very intense by nature. They're intense in different ways, but intense nonetheless. You know, that is a word that across the board people would use to describe a Scorpio, to describe an Aries. It's intense. Where they get that intensity from, part of it, is their Mars rulership. Okay, this is that god of war. This is the god of aggression and assertion and ambition and, you know, inspiration, we'll say. You know, it's not just a thing that, you know, it sounds negative when we say aggression and war, but obviously there's so much more to that planet and to Aries and Scorpio energy. It's an oomph, it's a passion, it's a drive, it's a readiness to do things, you know, and it's intense, right? So, but the point is that those people are usually on all the time. And when Mars goes into retrograde, it's a chance to relax. It's a license to chill out. And if you try to keep up your normal pace, when it's in retrograde, the key theme will be frustration because you're not supposed to be doing that. Now, there is a caveat to this, and I will mention this again in the general transit report, but if you have Mars retrograde natally in your birth chart, you might experience the opposite of this, okay? This is important to understand. Most people don't have their Mars retrograde in the natal chart. So most people will see a breaking down of ambitions and trying to force things not working out for them and them getting frustrated, okay? But if you're a person with Mars retrograde at birth, you might be pretty laid back and unambitious most of the time. But when Mars goes into retrograde, then you turn on while everyone else is turning down. Okay, so it's so important to follow your own personal flow. This is a message that I try to get across as often as possible. Doing general transits are very difficult. Doing general transits is very difficult because there's so many caveats to things. And this is one of those caveats that I think deserves mention, okay? So you have to follow your flow. So if I'm saying this is a time to relax, this is a time to chill out, but you have it retrograde at birth, it might be a time for you not to chill out. So that you have to follow your inclination and follow the signs, okay? So if you find that you're trying to push and it's not working and you keep pushing, you're going to get frustrated. It's going to be super annoying. You're going to get really angry. Anger issues will come up the more you try to push an agenda. If you relax, have recreation, stop pushing, go with the flow, follow the synchronicities, you can have the best time. I love Mars retrograde. I always think when Mars goes into retrograde, wow, I get a break for myself, right? It's pretty fun. But I always think, I'm not ambitious anymore. Gosh, this is good. This is nice. I'm like a normal person. Wow, I'm sane. Look at me. I'm not a maniac. And then as soon as Mars goes direct, I'm my usual self again. But it feels really real and permanent. It's just a really bizarre thing. So look out for this and see what your personal relationship is to this, okay? Because this is very, very relevant for you as a Scorpio. All right, so that's officially starting June 26th, but you will feel the shadow getting deeper as we get closer to June 26th. So that's all throughout June. So then this eclipse season is starting to ramp up while these other things are rolling back. So for Scorpios, early and middle degrees, so most of you, and maybe some late degrees, we'll see this in the 9th house. There is the chance that the late degree placements will see this solar eclipse energy in the 8th house, okay? So we'll talk about both manifestations depending on where you are. Early and middle degree placements, that means the first 20 or so days of the sign for the birth days of the sign, or the first 20 or so degrees if you're watching for your rising sign. You'll see this new energy, and it could be this old energy ending and then a new opening in the 9th house. So I'm calling the theme of the month for you the divine path, because this energy in the 9th house rules spirituality, it rules religion, it rules the creative solution, it rules the not mainstream way of looking at things, the alternative realities. It also rules teaching, learning, educating in general, or being educated, traveling, especially long distance, involving different countries, different cultures, different languages, international business, publishing, speaking. So any of those things, you might see this new opportunity open up. But it's interesting because when we have eclipses in the middle of a retrograde time, a lot of times those new opportunities are things that give an eye to the past. Okay, so something comes in as new, but there's something involving the past about it. Someone you talked to about this before, an idea you had before, something you've been thinking about forever, something that you were doing before that you bring back around, you know, dusting things off of old notebooks that have ideas or different projects or creative projects, finding an old hard drive where you have music or creative projects there, and then working with those things again. In general, the time for initiation is starting to fade, unless you have the natal retrograde like we talked about. You could feel a different flow. But in general, if you have to push something out or make a big decision, those days in the beginning of the month, June 1st through 3rd, are the best. Because as we get deeper into the retrograde energy, it's going to be more about keeping your projects closer to you. Because the things that you think you're trying to bring out or you want to bring out are going to evolve so much over the rest of the year until we get to December when the energy clears from the retrogrades, that you have to really intuitively feel in, is this something I'm supposed to bring out right now in its current form? If I do that, is it okay if it changes radically? Or is that not good for the nature of the project, you know? So just really, really feel out here what's going on. But opportunities in those areas are very likely. Now, if you have your birthday towards the end of the sign, or if you're watching for your rising sign and it's like after 20 degrees, 20 to 29 degrees, then you might see this opening with an eye to the past occur in your 8th house of Scorpio. So this has to do with spousal, money and relationships, marriage, intimacy, all the things of Scorpio, you know, sex, power, money, resources, borrowing money, loaning money. You're the one loaning, you're the one borrowing, things like that. Inheritances, sweepstakes, lottery, business collaborations, empowering yourself and other people. This has to do with the esoteric realms, so the unseen realms. You know, that's something that I notice across the board about Scorpios, and my husband is a Scorpio, so I see this all the time. It's around me all the time. There's a depth to the energy of Scorpio that is inherent in the energy itself, and you look in the eyes of a Scorpio person and you're like, I mean, of course, all humans have a lot going on in there, right? We're as complex as the universe itself is. But there's something about looking into a Scorpio that is like, wow, there's a lot going on in there, you know? And so these esoteric, unseen, hidden, quiet, deep things, all of those things have a chance to have this new resurgence coming. There's also, let's see, psychology, astrology is one of those things that is in there, parapsychology, anything like that. So anything with any of these things that I listed could very well come up as a new possibility. Now, if something comes up as new for you, it doesn't mean that you can't do it just because they're retrograde. So follow your flow. If it's a short-term thing, it's probably fine to commit to. If it's a flexible arrangement, it's probably fine to commit to. Just, you know, knowing that things will change and leaving flexibility in them is the most important thing. Okay, so I hope that this divine path energy opens up in magical ways for you. These are the things most on my mind for Scorpio this month. Now I want to talk a little bit more about what other energies you'll feel this month, what aspects, what dates to look out for, and the things to note with those. So I'm calling the theme of June 2018 for all signs, the magical act of releasing attachment, with a sub-theme or sub-themes of recreation and recreation. This abundance of air energy this month is going to bring a lot of restlessness, this need to move, variety seeking, the urge to communicate and connect will be very strong. And there will be many opportunities for this as well. So trips, travel near and far, sparkling conversations, chances to connect with people online and in person, a lot of busyness. People often notice when the sun is in Gemini and at this time of year, we've got a lot of busyness. You know, you'll see that things are ramped up. You're here, you're there, you're moving around. There's lots of things that you're trying to pull together. And also interests and things can be coming up and could be all over the board. The urge to move and express will be increased from this energy, but for many people, the desire for movement will be towards recreation rather than productivity. And this is compliments of the impending Mars retrograde transit. We've been talking about this for a long time. I've been prepping you for this. And of course, you can look at my blog, Your Guide to Mars Retrograde, and you can look at my video on the topic. You can just put in Annie Botticelli Mars Retrograde, and you'll pull up my other resources to go deeper into this. But for the most part, for most people, ambitions start to wane. Okay, so the key theme that occurs so much in Mars retrograde is frustration. But it doesn't have to be that way. That only happens if you're trying to go at your usual pace. In that transit, that's not wanting you to do that. So if you take cues from what's happening and you stop trying to force things, like dropping your agenda, this is one of the reasons why I'm calling this, the theme this month, the magical act of releasing attachment. If you drop your agendas, then you can flow more. If you give yourself permission to chill, then the odds of frustration will be much less because you're not trying to push up against this wall of energy that's pushing backwards. So there are some people, however, that have the opposite effect when Mars is in retrograde. Mars rules movement, and some people, and how you use your energy. It rules the assertiveness, you know, that get up and go, oomph, your oomph. So if you were born with Mars retrograde in your natal chart, you might have the opposite effect when Mars goes into retrograde. You might be what some people might call lazy or laid back or not ambitious most of the time. But then something crazy happens, maybe you haven't known what it was until now, then Mars retrograde comes and you get lit up while everybody else is going the other way. So that's why I always say, above everything, you have to honor your own personal flow and your intuition when you're listening to horoscopes, because there are always caveats to the general things that we share through horoscopes. So in any case, I always like to give you the heads up, because if you notice yourself getting what you describe as lazy, and then you're trying to give yourself a hard time about it, you can make this month and this transit, which runs from the end of June to the end of August, but really it started May 11th when the shadow period started, and it goes through the beginning of October. This is a long time. So if you understand this is going on, it's more likely that you can give yourself permission to relax. And if you give yourself permission to relax, pure genius can come to you when you're in that relaxed state. The way I like to describe the magic that can happen with this energy is with a typical story. I know myself, I've heard many situations where, let's say a couple is trying to have a baby and they're having trouble getting pregnant, and there's so much stress and there's pressure and they're putting it on and they're worried, and all of this energy is going towards this certain outcome. Then when they make the decision to adopt, sometimes they get pregnant. And the doctors chalk it up as the stress was released from the venture, right? So this is the energy that I want you to remember during this time, because a massive amount of magic, a massive amount of inspiration can come from that quiet time, like the Shavasana at the end of a yoga session. That quiet little short time of integration, of rest, integrates all of the work done prior. And very often when Mars is in retrograde, work that you've done before comes to you. So this energy of being like a spider that's going to be a theme that continues for a while, where you've done work, now you're letting everything come to you, is a good one to follow. Now, if you do have some things that you have to push through, and you don't want to wait until December when we're done with Mars retrograde, then Mercury retrograde, then Venus retrograde, then there are some points here in June where you could do that. And my favorite days are right in the beginning of the month. But I'll go into more details about that. But if you do have some things that you have to push through and you feel that they're, intuitively it's time to do it, then you might be able to take advantage of that energy. Okay, so I really love this month for vacations, because this desire to rest and slack makes an increase in the possibility that you'll enjoy the vacation and you'll leave your worries and work behind. So if you are a traveler, or you're planning a trip, or you just like to read about travel stuff, you can check out my website, Astrology Kissed Travel Bliss, and I do monthly astrology travel reports so that you can understand some highlights as far as it relates to travel, and there are also fun blogs and inspiration for travel. There's a new moon on June 13th, and this is another increase in this opportunity for travel, adventures near and far, connecting with siblings, cousins, and other relatives. If you have to make a last-minute purchase of a communication device, if you know that coming soon your car or your phone or something is due to get, if you're due to get a new one, this time around, the beginning of the month or around this new moon of the 13th, might be a good time to squeeze these things in, because Mars rules metal. And well, it's one of the, of course it's complicated, but things that are made of metal are under the rule of Mars. So buying machinery, utilizing machinery, and of course everything has metal in it, all of our devices. The energy is better for it when we're further away from the retrograde. So if you can help it, sometimes you might not be able to help it, in which case don't worry, just go with the flow. But if you know it's coming, you might want to take advantage of this this time in the middle of the month. So increasing your recreation time is a great goal. If you're going to have any goals during this time, it would be goals to have more fun and goals to relax and goals to take vacations and even goals to study, but in a laid back, leisurely way. You know, this is a time that can greatly favor education, but especially in flexible programs that allow you to go at your own pace so that if you turn out to lose some ambitions, that you're not penalized. If you're interested in education that feels more like a hobby rather than a stressful obligation, then it's very well indicated during this Mars retrograde, because we could see that as part of a focus on recreation. You might notice a slowdown in work, finances, romance, etc. But like I said, there is an amazing chance for you to reap rewards from the past. So things may slow down in some senses, but things from the past could come to fruition now without you even doing anything, and it might seem quite magical. If you have to do some work-related things, it's better to focus on clients from the past, ideas from the past, things like that, if at all possible. These retrogrades tend to make things get called into question. So things that were set or intended may drastically change form during this time or become irrelevant or uninteresting. So just notice the cycle, and just because something isn't, kind of goes away from your energy field at this time, it doesn't mean it's forever. I know I personally have Aries rising and Mars rules Aries, so I notice that I'm very much affected by this transit. Everybody's affected by it, but people with Aries and Scorpio placements, strong Aries and Scorpio placements, you notice it more because Mars rules Aries and co-rules Scorpio. But I've noticed that I just love this energy because it helps you to relax. And whenever this happens now, I plan my rests for this time. But if you didn't know that this were coming, you might think, wow, what is happening to me? I'm like this. So I feel like when Mars retrograde, like, wow, I'm never going to be ambitious again. That's so weird. And then as soon as Mars goes direct, I'm back to my normal ambitious self. So it's just interesting to watch your own personal cycles with this. And as I mentioned before, you might have the opposite occur, and notice that too. Learning astrology and using astrology is one big experiment, and the more you learn about what's going on and then you pay attention to your personal flow with that, the more you learn about the art and the science. Okay, so many people are going to be questioning many things in life, but there will be a special focus for the job, profession, life path because of the time that Mars is going to spend getting back into Capricorn. And since it spends most of the time retrograde in Aquarius, this strong focus on reconsidering or considering for the future, defining or redefining projects or relationships involving nonprofits, humanitarian efforts, technology, and other futuristic innovations, groups, things having to do with groups and teams and friends and friendships and acquaintances, social circles, and social media are all within this Mars and Aquarius energy. You might notice a lot of push and pull between home and work, home and family, mother and father, because we have a notable amount of oppositions between the Cancer and Capricorn energy. So this can bring a lot of overstimulation between home and family and work and your place out in the world. Overstimulation doesn't necessarily mean bad or good. It's just that there are opposing forces that are both demanding equal and extra focus, which can make you feel torn between these competing interests. But we do also have some great aspects with Uranus that can bring amazing insights and breakthroughs or happy surprises. So there are many times in this month where beautiful aspects are coupled with challenging ones. So good news and challenges could present simultaneously. You might see that going on. Okay, so the energy of this Cancer eclipse, we talked about where it would hit for you personally in your chart, but the general energy that everyone has this increased chance of experiencing is having to do with housing, home, and other family opportunities will likely be a dominating theme. There's something that a dermatologist said to me recently that I always wind up applying these random things to astrology, So she said that there's an increase in skin cancer risk for people who have light colored eyes, that there's something genetic about that relationship. Okay, so that doesn't mean that all people who have light colored eyes are going to get skin cancer, and it doesn't mean that all people who don't have light colored eyes are not. But this increase in probability is how I always frame astrology. There's an increase in probability of the things that these transits tend to bring. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to experience these things that are common. It just means there's an increase in probability. You know, the odds are more likely. Like on a day when the meteorologist says, rain is 90% today. Sometimes it doesn't rain, you know, but there's that increased chance. And that's what I want you to understand about the nature of these transits and the nature of these potentials. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of other dates to highlight this month. And if you want more details about dates and transits of note, then definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Sign up for my free email newsletter. You can also sign up at cozybysweetstarlight.com, which is where I also have written horoscopes, cozybysweetstarlight.com. If you sign up at either of those places for my free newsletter, I write a monthly write-up with more details about these general transits in a written version a month ahead than I give in the video. Okay, so it supplements what we're going to do here. If you have to do anything in June, important, money, love, you know, beauty choices, anything that you have to do, the creative projects, anything important. I love the first several days of the month. We've got beautiful Venus and Jupiter trine, and then Venus trines Neptune. So that's my favorite time of the month, besides the middle of the month, the 13th, with that new moon in Gemini. We've got a little bit of challenging energy after that, like the 5th through the 7th. Logic bumping up against intuition and some challenges there. Definitely take a moment to center yourself before walking, driving, biking, etc. And try to resist the urge to text while biking or text while walking or text while driving, because it just, this energy increases the odds of accidents. You want to be paying attention more. There's another sweet spot here in the middle of the month where I told you the new moon on the 13th. And then there's a nice aspect between Mercury and Uranus, but at the same time, there's a challenging one with Venus and Uranus. And some other challenges there in the middle of the month. We've got another sweet spot, June 19th through the 20th, when Mercury makes a trine to Jupiter. And then we have Mars going retrograde on the 26th. When a planet goes retrograde, there's a lot of awkwardness. So just look out for awkwardness around that time. Then there's the full moon in Capricorn on June 27th, and this will bring completion, fruition, accomplishment, or drama into the realms of work, career, father figures, and your place out in the world. So those are the things that are most on my mind for this month. Definitely check out my websites, anniehelpsyou.com, if you're interested in learning astrology as a profession or just for your self-development. If you'd like to be a coach, I have a coach training program. I have an astrology apprenticeship program. I also have a course called Creating Successful Online Business, where I teach you how to create an online presence and funnel it into your services that will help you to live the life that you want and not be geographically bound. If you want written horoscopes that are focusing on different areas than the videos that I make, then go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. If you would like to get information about astrology travel reports that I write for each month, then go to astrologykissedtravelbliss.com. And definitely check out my husband's website, iamhelios.com, iamhelios.com, for wonderful astrology and tarot readings. He also has some really cool free offerings on his site that bring sound vibrations that you can download that help to soften the energies of the current transits. So that's something really cool he's doing. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.